Hello, 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 everyone. I'm not sure who's joining us live today, but I am so excited that we are going to talk about Is the Future Here? I am Elizabeth Godey. I am the president and founder of Ratliff Consulting, and I have my very good friend, Markus Heitkoetter here with me. And Markus, you are the CEO of Rockwell Trading, and you and I have met previously through actually artificial intelligence and through some mastermind groups there. And then we were very fortunate to participate in even another mastermind group and have gotten to know each other very well through that. And you and I were speaking over the weekend about sort of this big change that's happened or update that's happened in artificial intelligence.
Oh my gosh. I mean, you really can't blink. I mean, it's so good to be here, Elizabeth, and I think it's a great time to talk about this because with all the developments that are happening, I mean, there's some cute stuff happening, right? When you can you do your own movies or you can do your own children's book. But then there's also some news that we see where we think like, ooh, where's this gonna go? So this is an over the weekend we talked about this new announcement that came out last week, where we thought, oh, that is super interesting, and that's why we decided to jump on a live stream here today to talk about it together and show you what it is and what we think about it and where does AI go? Where will we be in a year from now? Think about it. I mean, what was it? A year and 4 months ago, this is when OpenAI introduced us to Chat GPT. Now, AI has been around for a while, but this is when the first time we started playing around with it. And I mean, this was way back in the day, what, Chat GPT 3 or 3.5? And we were already like, whoa, this is crazy. And now it just advances at such a quick pace, and it's important to stay up to date with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I mean, I was at the Gen AI conference, a year and a month ago. And that was when, Sam, the founder of OpenAI, sat on stage and said, I don't even know if we need to go to GPT-4 because 3.5 has come such a long way. And then I think it was about a month later, they came out with GPT-4. And now there's a lot of discussion if this new announcement that came out a week ago is really what they're going to call GPT-5. And so a couple weeks ago, and this didn't really get a lot of mainstream press at all. And even this announcement last week didn't get a lot of mainstream press, which I'm super surprised about. But a couple weeks ago, OpenAI, which is the creators of, we both know, of course, but for anybody else who's listening that doesn't know, OpenAI created the Chat GPT that, most people are using as their artificial intelligence long language model. And they formed a partnership with a company called Figure. And it's also called Figure AI, but it's Figure.ai if you're looking to get into it. And Figure came on the scene, a year and a half ago, something like that. And they were going into this humanoid space, which is like a robot that actually looks like a human. And and behaves more like a human. So it's sort of, I had made a joke and I had sent out an email announcement about this live today. And I said, it's like it has a screen for a face. So it's not quite Megan, right? It's not quite, sort of Terminator, but it's definitely more advanced than Hal, right? So we're sort of in that space now. And then the exciting part came last week.
Yeah, I mean, this is where the announcement is like, okay, because the question is, I mean, we have seen robotics for years. I mean, Boston Dynamics has shown us crazy robotics. I mean, robots that can do backflips. I mean, they have come a long way. And it was just a matter of time to hear when does robots and artificial intelligence come together. And this is where it probably already happened, but we saw a very impressive demonstration last week.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to actually see if I can make this play. And I guess whoever is online watching us, if you can tell us if you can actually hear this, and I'm going to see if I can make it full screen. Okay.
So what we need to do is that we need to stop it every now and then so that we can provide commentary. Otherwise, you'll be flagged for copyright violation.
Sure.
So right now it's very quiet on my end.
Let me see if I can turn the volume up.
Do you hear it?
Yeah, I think because it's in ambient mode. Let me see.
Okay. So let's just talk about what's happening here since we don't have the sound. So here we see figure 1, which is the prototype that is powered by OpenAI's language model. And so the guy here in this video says, okay, can you describe to me what you see on the table? And it does it with, really good accuracy, where he says, okay, I see an apple, I see a glass, I see some dishes there, and I see you with your hand on the table.
Yes, absolutely. That's exactly what it's saying. And I think the interesting thing here is that when you actually put a prompt into Chat GPT, and certainly in the 4 model versus the 3.5 model, you know how it sort of like spins the wheel and it thinks for a second. You can see that the same behavior is happening in what they call figure 1, which is the humanoid that they're working with here. And there's definitely a little bit of a delay, but Marcus, I don't know about you, but I was shocked at how little of a delay there was.
Yeah, it is pretty fast. And we know that this is right now one of the main constraints that we have when it comes to AI. It is the processing power. I mean, the processing power is really holding us back from, and is also holding OpenAI back from releasing GPT-5, GPT-6, GPT-7. So, but I mean, we know that the hardware will catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if we let this play on a little bit further.
So this when the guy asked the robot to, what was it, give him, not really give him the apple. It was somehow a command that the robot has to derive that he wanted the apple.
Correct. So he basically says, can you describe why you did what you did while you pick up this trash? Is basically the command that happens here.
Right.
And then, you know, the figure 1, as they refer to it, talks about the apple as being the only editable item that he could have given to him on the table. And I thought that this was really interesting. So not only does he pick up the trash, but I love how he pushes the bin closer to him, right? Like, and to me, what's really interesting about that is it's not just an auditory response. I mean, this is like going to the next level of also you should push it back, right? He didn't give a command that says give it back to me, but figure 1 actually took it a next step that said, well, because I'm picking up this trash for you, I should give it back. You know, when I pick it up, I should give it back to you, which I thought that was fascinating.
So I believe the next command that is being given is, okay, can you put the dishes where they belong? And again, no other commands, just kind of very vague, to leave it up to figure 1, the robot here, to figure out, okay, where do these dishes belong?
And what's interesting is he actually says what he thinks should happen, right? So figure 1 responds back and says, well, looking at everything that's here, I think the dishes should go in the drying rack, right? So it's actually saying, okay, this is the next thing that I think should happen. And then continues to do it. I mean, and look at the dexterity also of the hands. I mean,
Right.
the complexity of what's happening right here is so much more than I think what people even think. And then Marcus, do you remember what happens here?
Yeah, this basically where the guy asks him, okay, why did you do what you did? And the robot explained the reasoning.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And he asks him how he thinks he did,
Oh
right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember it. It's supposed to evaluate itself.
So there were a couple really interesting things. So basically, figure one comes back and explains everything that he had done, which I think is really interesting. So it also shows sort of a larger span of time and thought process, right? So it's like, I gave you the apple because that was edible. I put the trash where the trash goes, and I put the dishes away. So I think I did really well. And the gentleman responds and says, I think you did too. Thank you. And what I thought was interesting was that was the first time any manners were referenced in this entire exchange. Um, what did you
Yeah,
think?
but I mean, we already know this from OpenAI, right? Or any large language models that we can. So when we are polite to any chats, whether it's Chat GPT or Claude or Perplexity, they're being polite back. I actually figured this out a couple of years ago with Siri on your phone. When you're rude to Siri, she's rude to you. And if you're nice to Siri, and I'm trying to be careful because now
Talking
what
to you,
goes
right?
off of what I say here. Anyhow, so this is where that's really not that new. But I mean, it is. Well, that's a question, Elizabeth. Is this scary? Are we looking at the next Terminator here?
Right. And I think that's a lot. I'm you and I both speak about AI, sort of around the world, and it's always the biggest topic is sort of like, do we have a self-aware model, right? Do we have a model that can think for itself and doesn't really need us anymore? And I felt very confident up until this came out, saying no, we're not anywhere close to a self-aware model. It's we're getting a little bit away from that. When this came out, it started making me question how far away we are with just some of the nuances of how figure one responded. And I just want to be very, very clear. This entire so the humanoid existed, but the combination of bringing in the GPT language model into this is only 2 weeks old. I want to be very clear that partnership started 2 weeks ago, and this video was released on Wednesday to the public. So, I mean, to say that my mind was exploding is an understatement. What's happening here? So I feel like we're getting not necessarily to the Terminator level of like where these machines would try to do bad things, or take responsibility away from us. But what do you think? What do you think the time frame is on this?
Well, I mean, first of all, the the robot did not get much feedback. He didn't incorporate a lot of feedback, right? So let's dissect it just step by step. So one of the first commands is, can you describe what you see? And we already know that this is something that ChatGPT can do. You can
That's
upload a picture. So you could have just uploaded the picture and asked ChatGPT, what do you see? And
right.
based on its current knowledge, it would have probably said the same. Now, we also know that there are some limitations. So, for example, if we would feed this exact picture right now into GPT and say, what kind of robot is it? It
Yeah.
wouldn't know that it is figure one, right? So there's still some limitations. But again, it would know that it is a robot, would know that it's an apple and the dishes. Now, I can remember the second command, but it was something like, well, that it needed where the robot needed to deduce basically that the human wanted to have the apple.
Right.
That's also, I mean, the robot, and again, OpenAI, if we would just ask ChatGPT, okay, which of these items is edible, ChatGPT would probably say the apple.
Right.
And that's kind of where it ends. Because if you think about it, if you would ask ChatGPT or the robot, what does the apple taste like? Well, it could only draw from its learning mechanism where on the internet he has some knowledge what an apple should taste like. But he has absolutely no idea. He wouldn't be able to taste the apple, right? So it's one of the things Visually, it could probably see whether the apple was rotten or not, and whether it was edible or moldy, or I mean, whatever it might be. But I still believe that there is very limited knowledge that this robot has, because it doesn't have first-hand experiences, never experienced biting into an apple, never experienced the difference between, here in this example, biting into a red apple versus a green apple. Now, based on the knowledge on the internet, where somebody described when biting in a red apple, you probably have a sweeter taste, and when biting in a green apple, it's more of a sour taste, right? Based on this, it could probably answer the question, do you believe that it will be sweet or sour when I bite into the apple? And it would predict it pretty well based on the knowledge. But again, the idea of artificial, or AGI, artificial general intelligence, I just read, I think this morning, that we haven't even defined what is human intelligence versus artificial intelligence, right? So what is the difference here? When is it really demonstrating human intelligence versus regurgitating what it has learned by reading the internet? That's how it all started.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, if where things get more interesting, of course, is if you put in an inanimate apple, right, versus an actual apple, right? So it's a wooden apple versus a fruit apple. Could it tell the difference? Like, is there enough sensors in its fingers to know if it's rock hard, right, or if it's slightly soft?
Yeah.
It's like the old joke in some of the old TV shows when people eat wax fruit, right? Which even humans have problems with. And where I think things get really interesting, when you actually study what it's like for a machine. So when you think about self-driving cars, right, and the amount of knowledge that they need to have with the amount of information that they're interpreting, which is not a place that we do a lot of conversing in, because the biggest point of conversation right now is in long language models. But when you look at this, is getting similar to the sort of limited memory and in the things that are used within those types of devices. If you think about, let's say, a gecko, or something that might have a lot of species, fish, things that have a lot of them. So it's like, as a category, it's a fish, but being able to dial down into what type of fish, or being able to dial into what age of fish, or, if it's a male or female fish, and you start sort of looking at the amount of data points that are required there to visually be able to represent it. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of bias that are still in these tools, of course, and that's fed based on the types of developers that are developing and what their interest points are and things like that. But when we go back to figure one, I still go back to, there are still things in the code that are being developed right now. I mean, the nuance of giving the basket back, that was not part of the command, right? That was a nuanced action, in my opinion. So that was either developed for, or the machine has taken that as an interpretation of other information that it received at some point and said, well, this is an action I should do. I even look at the fact that he took the apple, figure one took the apple from one hand, moved it to another hand because that hand was closer to give it to him.
Right.
Like, those are very nuanced behaviors that, I mean, maybe they're being developed for, but they're very interesting from my perspective, and looking at sort of the automation that's happening.
Well, we also still need to think about, okay, what does it mean to be smarter than a human, right? When it comes to knowledge,
Yeah.
is this robot or Chat GPT or any large language model smarter than a human when it comes to knowledge? Absolutely, hands down, right? When it comes to knowledge, because I forgot more things that I learned in college than I retained, right? Because I mean, it seems that as humans, we have a limit when it comes to how much knowledge we can store. Or maybe it is just, you say you don't use it, you don't use it, you lose it. So this might be it. Now, here it's different. Once a large language model is trained, it will not forget this information anymore. So when it comes to knowledge that was absorbed through something, yes, I do believe that this is where this robot could be smarter. Now, the next question is then, okay, in terms of experiences, no, because it cannot make new experiences. But that's what you just said, right? The feedback loops. So probably at some point when they were playing with the robot, right, and he pushed the basket back, they said, well, I can reach it, push it some further. And then it learns that, okay, I need to push it close to the edge of the
Right.
table. But here's the other interesting thing, right? This robot and also large language models have very limited knowledge of physics. So the
Right.
question is, if we would ask the robot to push this basket to the edge of the table as close to the human as possible without it tipping over, I wonder how it did. You see, as humans, it's for us very easy to push something to the edge of the table, right, and say, okay, this is still safe, yay. And if I do it a little bit more, then it starts tipping, right? I mean, we can see this in a fraction of a second because we have this experience. So the question is, would this robot know how far it could tip it? How much does it have spatial awareness? And I don't know. There's still a lot of questions around this. And also knowing that this demonstration was probably the 58th take that they did of this video, right? I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, I mean, this was not the first take where they say, yeah, you know what, let's just let's
Agreed.
roll the cameras, let's do a live stream here, right? No, I mean, this probably, and this were during the previous 57 takes, now, again, just guessing a number here, they probably already told the robot, no, use your left hand when and handing it over, right? So a lot of the nuances that are observed are learned. But again, nonetheless, impressive because it means that the robot and also large language models can take instructions and learn from them.
Well, and I think it's also three-dimensional versus two-dimensional, which I think is an interesting advancement. I will say I do question a little bit the validity of the video, and I'm not saying that it's not truthful, but there were a few things that bothered me. It bothered me that there wasn't a side-by-side showing simultaneously both faces at the same time. And I did feel like there was maybe more conversation happening when we saw the back of the facilitator's head. I don't know, maybe I'm being a little cynical, but I did sort of question some of that. So I don't want to be all like rainbows and lollipops with this, but it still is very, very interesting. Now, the one thing is, if you actually do research into Figure and who they are as a company and what they're actually trying to do, like why this makes sense, is they're really sort of focused more in the sector of, let's say, more the manufacturing and retail space, places that's becoming increasingly more difficult to hire people. And there is a concern that, you know, in the next few years, you're not really going to have any more people to hire to be able to do these jobs. And so their whole point is that we want to create a human-like, you know, machine, basically a humanoid that can sort of take the place of these people. Interesting, right? I mean, very altruistic. I think that, you know, Terminator, we started not so far off of that, but anyway. So my question is, in our industries, do we see a place for a humanoid in our industries? So you, of course, work in trading, and do you think there's a place for a machine like this in your business sector?
In trading, no. I mean, this is where it's always the dream, right? To have a machine do something for you that money is automatically being deposited into your account, right? And
Right.
of course, the dream is with trading. Could we send a robot to a casino to count cards, right? So this is where we have to think about it. Okay, what if we did, right? It would be banned because, I mean, we would never be able to send figure one to a casino and say, play blackjack, right?
Right.
Because the odds are in the favor of a casino, and figure
Right.
one would probably tip it. So it's kind of the same in the markets, right? I mean, a stock price moves up and down because of greed and fear. If you would rationally just take all of the data points, we can do this today. If you take all of the data points and determine a fair value of a stock, I mean, we would arrive at one point and the markets would cease to exist. So
Right.
it's more like we're thinking about the projections. Why is Nvidia skyrocketing? Why is Tesla going through the moon? Why is Tesla trading at a much higher multiple than Ford or GM, right? Even though it is a car maker, and then no, it's a software company. Oh, well, really, is it? So this is where I don't think so. However, when I saw this, I immediately said, okay, I want one. Because, no, I mean, seriously. So think about it. There is just so many tasks that you and I do every day that
Mhm.
is not really the best use of our time.
Right.
Taking the trash out. I have a
Cleaning the house.
very long driveway. Taking the trash out or hauling the trash cans to the front of the street takes a while, right? I mean, do I need to do this, or can figure one do this? Figure one can do this, right? Small things like refresh my coffee. Sure, it's easy enough, right? So if you think about it, yes, you might say, all right, I enjoy cleaning. It's kind of zen for me, so I enjoy when I can clean up, tidy up. It's not zen for me. It's driving me bonkers, right? So I rather have somebody do it. Would I be
Me
okay
too.
if
Me too.
Android do it? Huh?
I said, "Me too." I don't wanna clean. That's definitely not my center of excellence.
Yeah. Or, you and I, we're knowledge workers. So when we're in a zone, right, we want just somebody to feed us, bring us a beverage, right? And of course, we could try to just yell across the house and see if anybody hears us. Or we could have figure one who would say, be happy to do this
Right.
instead of, if you want to get it yourself. I mean, you know what I mean? So this is where I think that I mean, in the same way as over the years, new innovations have replaced certain jobs, right?
Mhm.
What always comes to mind as an example is this movie Hidden Figures. Have you seen the
Oh,
movie Hidden? Right,
absolutely.
fantastic movie, right? You had all these, you had the mathematicians, and then you had these girls doing a lot of calculations that were kind of mundane, and then
Mhm.
IBM introduced the computer, and these jobs ceased to exist. So is
Mhm.
this something sad? No, right? Because as we have seen, the hero in the movie adapts and now works on a higher level. So, and this is where I think it helps us as humans just work on a higher level, and therefore us humans becoming smarter by using artificial intelligence to take over some of the tasks that we shouldn't focus on, unless again they're bringing us joy. I mean,
Oh,
Marie
exactly.
Kondo, I mean, if you would say, no, we have robots cleaning up right now, I mean, that would not be good for her, but right? She has joy cleaning up. I don't. So this is where I think it's important to see how can artificial intelligence help us, and in the same way as it is already in our daily lives, especially for you and I, since we are, I want to say, really trying to stay on the edge of what is possible
Mhm.
with all the tools, as said during the conferences and masterminds that we are attending. It's also interesting to see what could an android, a robot, bring to the table when we combine this.
Yeah, and I think that my industry is a little bit different, right? I mean, I think about sort of the branding, sect that I work in, and even just the marketing in general. When you think about what a machine can be trained to do, a humanoid can be trained to do, you can make sure that they reflect your brand exactly the correct way, exactly the way that you want to, time and time again. They don't have the emotion built in that impacts them where they're having a bad day, right? And then that gets translated to the customer. So from that standpoint, you think about companies, you think about customer service, you think about service in general, think about restaurants, think about retail, and how important it would be making sure that you consistently every single time listen to your customer or your prospective customer and help meet their needs based on what they have, and imagine having an infinite memory for anything and every product that you have. Like, I mean, to me, this does amazing things, could do amazing things for companies outside of just in my personal life that, there are a million things that I could just, d- uh, delegate to figure one, as we move on. And I do think that it becomes very interesting. I mean, certainly from, a bot perspective, sort of virtual customer service and things like that. I mean, the voice commands and also just in text and, messaging, they have already infiltrated, right? I mean, there's already tons and tons of people, companies using those right now. This goes to the next level because this allows you to go in person, right? This allows you to get into the market. And you even think about like COVID, right? Like these are machines that can't take, they can't get sick. They can't give well, to our knowledge, they can't get anyone else sick except for maybe another machine. I don't know. It's very interesting to me where this is going for sure.
Absolutely. And I think that's why we love to just stay on top of this, right? Why we're reading all of this, why we get excited when we see videos like this, because we connect the dots, right? That's what we're trying to do here. Okay, with this, where will it go? Because again, 15 months earlier, we just were introduced to generative AI. That's what we are in right now. So it's all generative AI. And if you see how far we have come, how many apps we have right now, and especially after the text really works really well, now we go to images, to movies, to sounds, right? And if you see the apps that are available right now, it's crazy. So if you think about it, where will we be in another 15 months from now? Yeah, and there's two ways, right, how you can deal with it. You can either put your head in the sand and say, no, I'm not dealing with it. But trust me on this one, AI is not going away. It's here to stay. It's like the internet. And you can either, or computers, right? And you can either resist it. And if you do, you might get left behind. And again, referencing the movie Hidden Figures, right? You can be scared of machines. You can say, oh, they will never replace us. Or you can say, you know what? This machine is probably not going to go away. I'm going to figure out how to make this machine my, and I want to say something inappropriate, so you get the idea, right?
I think I
my
know.
machine, and we leave it just like this.
No, I love it. I think you're dead on and exactly right. And I would say that the one additional point I would make, because I fully agree and support every single thing that you said, I think the additional point is making sure that we could get good representation in these tools, because what happens is it's the people who are using the tools are the data endpoints that are going in, as well as the developers that are creating them, and we need more diversity in the inputs that are happening to ensure the fact that we're going to have good, well-rounded tools. I mean, I don't know, Markus, if it's just me, but anytime if I do, even if I specifically reference a particular type of ethnicity for a woman, about 90% of the time I get an Asian return whenever I request a woman.
Really?
Yes. And so I find that there is a lot of bias that's happening, in a lot of these tools. There's tremendous amount of bias. And so the way that we combat bias is making sure that we get good representation. So I always like to throw that in whenever I'm talking about artificial intelligence, to make sure that we get a lot of women using these tools and we get a lot of diversity in the ethnicities that are using these tools.
There you go. Love it.
So, Markus, I just want to thank you so much. And I think that we should get back together and talk about this as it continues to advance, when we get a video that's longer than, sort of 2 minutes describing figure one. And we'll make sure to post the link to the YouTube on all of the places that we streamed today, to make sure that everyone gets a chance. And make sure that you give us your feedback on what you think of figure one and the advancements that are being made in artificial intelligence. And Markus, how can people get in touch with you if they would like to pick your brain on other things with artificial intelligence?
Well, try to spell my name, because it's pretty unique. And when you Google it, trust me, one of the platforms that you're on will pop up, whether it is LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, my website, YouTube. So just write down the name. You can even go for the last name. Trust me, there's no other Heitkoetter in the US. And if you manage to spell Markus with a K, you'll be in good hands. So, I could name a bunch of websites or YouTube channels, but trust me, when you Google this name, you will find me. I'm
I love
not
it.
difficult to find.
I love it. I love it. And of course you can find me on any multitude of channels as well. And I thank you so much. And thanks everybody who's watching or will catch the replay.
All right.
See you next time.
Bye.